The article contains videos with depiction of violence, so viewer discretion advised. With House of the Dragon showing off the strength and conflicts within House Targaryen, it's becoming clear that the house was too strong to ever be truly weakened by outsiders. Even with a weak king like Viserys, there have always been strong Targaryen influences like Daemon and Rhaenyra. Yet, House Targaryen still manages to fall, and it was only Daenerys from Game of Thrones that managed to bring it back to life and revive the mythical dragons. Her stunning ability to restore a dead house and species is what made fans love her, which is why they have been making many memes that can sum her up perfectly. Underestimates her dragons. Though Daenerys has always had a good heart, despite some unpopular opinions about her, she never fully accounts for how wild a dragon can be. Because she views them as her children, she has a tendency to ignore the fact that they are giant fire-breathing weapons of mass destruction. That tendency led to the death of a child in Meereen, which is why she locked her dragons away for so long. Yet, even in the aftermath of that, she didn't seem to fully understand the scope of the risk they represent to Westeros. After all, just like she was in Meereen, she expected Jon to be able to get along with her dragons immediately, despite their protective natures. Inconsistent allies. It's one thing to betray a monarch, but it's another thing entirely to do it to her face. After the death of one of her dragons and the capture of Miss Sande, Varys made it incredibly clear that he did not trust Daenerys in the slightest. After all, he tried to betray her at the first possible opportunity. Given how many of Daenerys' best friends, like Jorah and Jon Snow, eventually betrayed her, it's hard not to feel sorrow for her. She was never given a moment's stability in her life, and even her friends and allies often ended up failing her. It's a testament to why she did what she did to King's Landing. Fire and Blood source. Reddit. Having grown up far from the Red Keep and far from even Dragonstone, Daenerys was never able to fully embroil herself in the traditions of House Targaryen. Though she was proud of her heritage, she had only her name, her looks, and her house words to link her to it. Still, she certainly learned their words well, as Fire and Blood was always her default. It was a Targaryen's first visit to King's Landing after Robert's rebellion, and Daenerys was stunned to see the people rising up against her after being told all her life that they would support her. So, after losing her friends and being betrayed by everyone she trusted, it made some sense that she would seek Fire and Blood at the first opportunity. Relies on fire as the mother of dragons, Daenerys has always been closely tied to fire. In many scenes that foreshadowed Daenerys' turn to villain, she lashed out against her enemies seeking Fire and Blood. Though she was always justified in her wars, it was somewhat unnerving to see her always suggest fire. After all, she was obsessed with fire from the start of the show. Daenerys did get dragons with a giant funeral pyre that burned Murray Maz-Duur alive. She also managed to acquire an army of free slaves by burning the masters in Yunkai. Her assaults against Westeros also benefited from dragonfire, which is why she was able to maintain a military presence at all. Stylish and determined like any ruler, Daenerys always strove to dress well when she could. Often sporting her house's red and black colors, she did manage to also get her hands on furs for the winter when she needed them. It's what made her look as practical as it was fitting for a queen. Of course, in the same way she knew how to dress, she also knew that it was her responsibility to protect her people and her allies. It's why she went to save Jon Snow in the first place, and why she sought to stop the White Walkers before they could harm the kingdom. Much like Stannis, she knew that she needed to defend Westeros before she could take it. Unrepentant. While many characters in Game of Thrones can feel embarrassment or shame for their harsh actions, Daenerys Targaryen isn't one of them. Once she makes a decision, she sticks by it and doesn't tend to look back. She rarely even seems to recall the death of her brother or anything of the sort, and it's strangely admirable. While some say it's a quality that makes her the true villain of Game of Thrones, it's something a queen needs to be able to do in order to survive in Westeros. So, while she may resort to fire and blood too often, it's no different from Robb launching into war to avenge his father or Renly seeking war with his own brother. Disbelief about the true heir. After falling for Jon Snow, Daenerys quickly discovered that she wasn't the only living Targaryen. Jon was the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, and his parentage meant he was just as Targaryen as Daenerys was, and he had a stronger claim to the throne. Instead of lashing out at him, Daenerys asked that he keep his parentage secret. While a marriage pact might have been a wiser choice, asking him to keep it silent was also an act of benevolence. Mother of dragons. Though Daenerys gained her power by ensuring the birth of 3 dragons, some fans grew somewhat tired of her constant insistence that each dragon was her child. It is somewhat strange to see a grown woman cradling lizards and insisting they are her literal children. Yet, it makes perfect sense for Daenerys, who sacrificed so much to get them. She genuinely came to love her dragons, who also proved to see her as their mother as well. So no matter how much Daenerys protests too much, they really were her children, and Drogon proved it when he took her body after the sack of King's Landing. Daenerys' actions are shockingly consistent. Source: Tumblr. One common thing that fans always insist about Daenerys after the unpopular final Game of Thrones season is that every season prior to it hinted at her slow descent to becoming the Mad Queen. She spent much of the early seasons burning her enemies and pillaging cities. In one instance, she even chose to watch as her brother burned alive. It's hard to accept that Daenerys was always inherently cruel. She was often only cruel to those who genuinely deserved it, like slavers and her malicious brother. She often tried to protect the weak, the innocent, and the hungry however she could. As Khaleesi, she did her best to protect women under Khal Drogo's regime. Nevertheless, each time Daenerys did burn someone or something, it consistently shocked everyone. The worst advisors. While Daenerys often had good strategies to help her manage any problem she came across, her advisors were often less than useless. In many cases, they could be actively harmful to her cause. After all, Jorah betrayed her, Tyrion often gave ridiculous advice, and Barristan was willing to embarrass her in front of the wise masters of Yunkai. Had Daenerys ignored Tyrion after arriving in Westeros, she would have been able to conquer King's Landing without losing a single dragon along the way. Unfortunately, she was stuck between multiple poor advisors and chose to delay, which eventually led to her untimely demise.